Hello, it's Martin Brown again, Horrible Histories illustrator and lesser spotted animals guy, and I'm going to be doing some more how to draw with you. Last time I spoke about drawing faces mostly and the fact that you should be able to draw even if you say you can't. This time I thought I would talk about drawing figures, whole people, arms, legs, that sort of thing, and I'll still be saying that everyone can draw. Because it's strange, isn't it, how people say they can't draw. Little kids don't do that. It's only big kids and adults who say they can't draw. Little kids are perfectly happy drawing things like and that's fine, isn't it? All children all around the world start drawing like this. That's their first figure. And eventually it might sprout some arms. And that's great, they're really happy with that. And then eventually it might turn into something more like this. Buttons, they're always buttons, I don't know why. And then this is good. You know, kids are really happy drawing like this. And then we draw our stick figure and we say we can't draw. And that's really strange because for a long time, children are happy with this. And it's not just little kids. All through human history, we have drawn characters which are not realistic. See, I think we think that our drawing doesn't look great because it doesn't look realistic. It doesn't look accurate. It's not right. But throughout history, for thousands of years, in fact, we have drawn people like this. And then this. And then this. And all this time, these people could draw realistically. We have seen evidence of that. But they were happy enough to draw along these lines because it was the style that was important. Being realistic just wasn't a thing. Then along comes the Renaissance and ruins everything. Because now realism was the fashion. People were falling over themselves to paint the velvet more realistically and lace and the human form. And it became such a thing that it was the only way to paint. It became the high point of Western painting and we're sort of stuck with it. And this is amazing. Every turn of lace, every silver thread, every pearl picked out with a paintbrush. It's extraordinary. But we're kind of stuck in this. We still think this is the pinnacle of Western art. Thank goodness for people like Picasso, who actually paints more like we have done throughout human history. You don't have to paint realistically to be a wonderful artist. Look at children's books. Johnny Duddle. It's just beautiful, but it's not realistic. Or Tim Archibald from Be Good Gordon. I mean, isn't that fun? Isn't that just full of life and bounce? But it's not a realistic picture. So you can draw. But if you really want to draw realistically or make your pictures look right, whatever that is, you can learn how. It ain't magic. It's the same as anything else. You can learn the techniques to help your drawings become a little bit more, well, like the Renaissance bullies. For example, you can draw a stick figure. Okay, everyone can do that. But it's not that much harder to replace that stick with a box. Okay? So, head's there, little bit of neck, and instead of a stick, you put in a box, about, 2 squares high. The legs can be a little bit longer than the box. An oval there and oval there, just at the level where the box stops and the leg starts. Connect it to the top with a couple of lines. Elbows halfway down, which is handy because if you do that, you realise that your elbow is kind of where your waist is. knees halfway down, and there you are. You see, you're beginning to get a more realistic shape. It's a more realistic framework of a human body. You could take it a step further and sort of put a chest in there and some hips in there. You could even put in shoulders and hips with a backbone even. And you see now it's beginning to look like a skeleton. And of course, a skeleton is the framework for any shape a human being can make. So with a box, you can make your drawings a little bit more like a realistic human being. What's more is, because it's a box, you can see it not just flat on, but sideways as well. So you can imagine a box side on. There are the arms, there are the shoulders, legs down there. Because by turning the box sideways, you can see that even sideways it's got a bit of width. And then you can do something else. Because it's a box, it's easier to imagine it on an angle. You see, you can't really do that with a stick man. And because it's at an angle, it's got perspective. Perspective works on people just as it does on buildings. So there's the waist there, that might see the hand down there. So you begin to see that you can see this in a more realistic way. Take it a step further. If you can see angles, why not see it from below or from ground level? You see? And then put in the chest, put in the hips, shoulders, and you've got a much easier framework to work with. What's more, you're used to doing this. I mean, I know you can do this. And if you can do that, then of course you can make it do things. You can make it move. You can make it run. You can make it walk. Sit down. So I'm sure this is not impossible. This is not difficult to do. And if you're ever curious about the shapes that people make when they're running or walking or sitting, you just look at pictures. You know, look at photographs of the Olympics when people are running and jumping and sitting a bit. Now, if you can do that, and of course I know you can, it's not that much harder to replace the stick with a box. Running, elbows, knees, quite big feet. You see, side on running, walking, hips, shoulders, arms swinging. And there we are. You see, it's just a little bit of width there to give you a more realistic frame. And because it's a box, you could give it a bit of an angle. So now it's a bit more 3D. So that's how this is how I start all my drawings. I mean, if I can do, you can do this. And this is how I do it. I mean, you can do both. You can do this, you can do this, and that's how I draw. I start all my drawings with a box down. All my Horrible Histories figures start with this kind of guy. So, and this guy as well. So I suppose I should do one for you now to show you sort of the techniques that I use when I'm drawing a Horrible Histories figure. And to prove to you that it isn't magic, it's just stuff that you learn as you go along. And of course, the more you do it, the more you practice, the more you enjoy doing it, of course, the better at it you're going to get. First thing to do is that you've got to decide what your figure's going to do? Is he running, jumping, standing? I'll keep it relatively simple this time. Start off with a basic framework, not too much movement, to give the idea and to show you how I build up a figure. Now, usually I'd start with a pencil, because what I would do is rub it out when I'm finished, but that's not going to show. So I'm going to start with this orange to give you, or to make it more visible really. There's my box, it's slightly wedge shaped. Okay, shoulders here, chest is sort of there, so hips are here. Okay. Give him slightly bent legs, because what I think I'll do is it's like a frightened peasant. A lot of peasants in Horrible Histories. They're always there. There might be lots of kings and queens and rulers and emperors and such, but it's always the peasant, it's always the little guy that's got to put up with it all. So hand there, maybe he's got a pitchfork or something like that. Okay, so there's our framework. There's our box man. He possibly at a slight angle. Now, if I'm happy with that, now at this stage, of course, because it's pencil, if there was anything about this I wasn't entirely happy with, now's the time to rub it out, because it's changeable. It doesn't have to be right or wrong, it needs to be where I want it to be. But it looks, okay. So then I could start with a little bit of extra detail. It's still pencil. So I'd thicken up the arms. Because the great thing about using a box mount, I should have said this earlier possibly, it's easier to put clothes on. If I was putting clothes on this, I'd be guessing. I mean, it's doesn't really fit. But here, of course, the shape's already there. You see? It's just following the shape of the box. So, back to this guy. Thickening up the arms, which of course is also the shape of the clothes. I'm going to put his waist a bit lower on his tunic. Knees here, so a bit of thickness to the legs. Calves. He's probably not terribly broad because he's not well fed, I suspect. This foot is facing you a bit. That's called foreshortening. We know that an arm is this long, but when it's facing you, of course, it looks a lot shorter. In fact, sometimes you can't even see the arm at all. So if you can't see it, don't draw it. I mean, that's the great thing about drawing. You don't have to draw something that's not there. So that's the feet. I'll sort of thicken up the neck a bit of detail on his tunic. Hands. Hands are tricky, and there's no really simple way of, no shortcuts of drawing hands. It's a question of observation, really. If you really look at something, you can see the shapes it makes. The hand is basically square with four things sticking out the front. The thumb kind of sticks up at the base of the square or the rectangle. But of course, it does so much else that it's hard to remember, or it's hard to put all that into context. So a gripping hand, okay, makes that sort of shape on that side and that sort of shape on that side. It's just a question of seeing how the thumb wraps around the fingers and wraps around the staff of the, well, whatever, the spear or the pitchfork. So give that a bit of extra. It's all a bit wonky, of course, but a drawing like this would take me a while. And I'm trying to go quite quickly, but this is pencil, you know, it doesn't matter. It's a cartoon as well, which means it's got to look peasant-ish, but it's not a realistic picture. Last time we talked about drawing faces. He's at a slight angle, so his head is turned a little bit. So his ear will be visible on this side, probably not on the other side because it's turned. Give him a Middle Ages style peasant hat, and he's looking a bit surprised. Probably some longish hair. You might see on both sides. So here that's sort of our peasant, maybe some lacing there. That'll do for now. That's our pencil drawing of a peasant. Now, on top of that, I would draw my ink line. It is, for me, this is the way I draw, drawing it twice, really. Now, you don't have to draw it this way. This is just the way I do. Lots of other artists will go straight ink. They won't do the pencil stage because that gives them a lot of bounce and immediacy, where this is a bit more careful and slow. Darken the hair a bit. Right, some folds. I'm just going over that line, but all the time it's still based on that initial framework I did with the Boxman. Feet, bit of shadow under there, calves, boots. Slightly open hand. But once again, you probably can't see the little finger because it's round the corner. Grasping hands. Can't draw at this angle. Can't draw at this angle. Shouldn't have said that. It's harder to draw at that angle. Of course, I can draw. It's just difficult from that side. Right, there's our line work. I might add a few more folds. Yeah, and then I might just add a bit of cross hatching for tone. Most Horrible Histories drawings are black and white, so I've got to make up for it by just adding a bit of darkness with cross hatching. And my pen's running out as well. So there we are. That is a Horrible Histories drawing based on a Boxman. And of course you can make the box any shape you like. It can be wider at the top, it can be wider at the bottom, it can be more rounded. I'll do another one really quickly. You give a really long body, very short legs, big feet, short arms, maybe a really big nose, and then it's not too much of a jump. To turn him into Rattus. See? So you can use these shapes to do anything you like. And maybe next time I'll talk about drawing animals. But for now, just do this. Because I know that you can do that. Once upon a time, you were really happy doing this, and then you could do that, and that is great. But if you can do that, you can do that, and that, and that, and that. And I think you could do that as well. As I said earlier, don't let those Renaissance bullies tell you that you can't draw, because I know that you can. I'm going to find this again now. See you next time.